Do you think this person will ever be indicted, will ever be charged or convicted?
No.
What you're saying is, whoever killed JonBenet will get away with murder.
Yes.
What's up, Mob Crew? I'm Chris. In today's video, I go over precious little JonBenet. It's been 25 years since she was found slain in her home the day after Christmas. I will go over her story in two parts. This is part one. Also, today's missing person case is Lisa Pollock. She was last seen in Wickiup, Arizona. She will be featured at the end of my video, so please stay until the end for that. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, where we cover murder, mystery, to the paranormal. Part 1. The Nightmare After Christmas. So on August 6, in 1990, a beautiful girl was born named JonBenet Ramsey. She was full of life, a spunky girl, and just your average kid who loved to play. She had an older brother named Burke Ramsey, and their parents were Patsy Ramsey and John Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey was a businessman who was the president of Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. He was a very wealthy man who had his own private jet. At this time, John actually had 2 adult children, a son and a daughter, from a previous marriage who lived elsewhere. John had moved with his second wife, Patsy, and family to Boulder, Colorado, where Access Graphics headquarters was located. Patsy Ramsey actually worked for John Ramsey at his company at one point. She was an American beauty pageant winner who won the Miss West Virginia pageant at age 20. Patsy would enter JonBenet in various child beauty pageants in Boulder, Colorado, where she won the titles of America's Royal Miss and many others. This would end up being highly controversial later on after the homicide due to the fact the media smeared JonBenet everywhere on screen with her dressed up in these pageants. She was just your average kid. So on Christmas morning of 96, the kids came down and opened their presents. The kids played with their gifts. JonBenet got a new bike and she couldn't wait to ride it. The family would leave later that day to attend a Christmas party at a family friend's, Fleet White. The last time JonBenet would be seen alive by others would be as she was being put into the Ramsey vehicle in the driveway of the Fleet White's home. It is unclear what really happens after they arrive home, but the Ramseys claim they put the kids to bed and went to sleep. Patsy supposedly wakes up at 5:30 in the morning to go downstairs to make coffee, and she finds a 3-paged ransom note laying on the stairs. In this ransom note, it says, "Do not call the police." Patsy Ramsey then calls 911. Here is the call.
911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was this? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please. Okay,
There's somebody.
am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath away, okay? Hurry. Patsy.
One of the biggest things noticed about this call is why Patsy would hang up on the dispatcher. This is your lifeline, your hope. Then you have the fact that she didn't actually hang up the phone initially, and you can actually hear a conversation going on as seen in this video. And you can kind of make out a third person talking, which sounds like Burke saying, "What did you find?" The problem with this is that the Ramsey claimed Burke was still asleep during this time. Then we have the ransom note, which is really more like a short novel, as it sits at 2.5 pages full of repeating statements and completely contradicts itself throughout the letter. The ransom letter goes on to explain that a small foreign faction has kidnapped their daughter, and that if they go to law enforcement, that they will behead JonBenet. In the letter, it says that they want $118,000 for the ransom. Not $120K, not $200K, $118K. A very specific amount. Note that John Ramsey was worth a couple million during this time, and they just only wanted $118K. Suspiciously, this was close to what John Ramsey would have received for his Christmas bonus that year, which turned out to be $118,223 for his bonus that year. The other problem with this letter is that it had quotes in it that were similar to major Hollywood movie quotes like "Don't grow a brain, John," which comes from the movie Speed. Note, the Ramseys also had a bunch of movie posters in their house. Before 6 a.m., police officer Rick French arrives at the Ramseys. As he is greeted by Patsy, he notes that she is still in full makeup and wearing the clothes that she was seen at the party the night before, which would suggest that she did not go to bed like she stated later to local law enforcement. Before the 911 call, Patsy decided to call their closest friends, Fleet and Priscilla White, and John and Barbara Fernie, and invite them over, and they are now beginning to arrive to the home sometime between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., along with 4 more officers, and they all do an initial sweep of the home and find nothing overtly suspicious. At 8:10 a.m., the first detective on the case is Linda Arndt, who begins her investigation, which would be heavily criticized for her not securing the scene properly, but in an interview, which I will play a little later, would suggest she had a nearly impossible task considering all the people she had to keep track of. At 10:30 a.m., John Ramsey goes missing for at least an hour, leaving the house to supposedly pick up the mail. It's later determined this couldn't be true given the family's mail was delivered through a slot in the front door. At 1 p.m., Detective Arndt tells a resurfaced John Ramsey that she wants to conduct a search of the home. John immediately grabs his friend Fleet and beelines it to the basement. John opens up a door that had not been previously checked before. As he turns on the light, he lets out a gasp, which Fleet hears, and they discover poor JonBenet's body in a spare room in the basement. Her mouth and neck are bound with duct tape and wrapped in a blanket. Mr. Ramsey immediately picks up JonBenet's body and carries her up the stairs, and Detective Arndt tells him to set her down on the floor where it had been heavily trafficked area, meaning this would cause major cross-contamination. This event, in my opinion, would be the biggest mistake and the main cause as to why this case has not been solved. Detective Arndt kneels down next to JonBenet and realized she is deceased. She had suffered a skull fracture and strangulation. They would move her body one more time, which would further contaminate the crime scene. Here is what Detective Linda Arndt said in a very mind-blowing interview.
She says she did all morning make mental notes of all things curious, including, she says, the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey remained apart in separate rooms for most of the day. That at one point, she says John Ramsey took time out in the middle of the crisis to read his mail.
I remember seeing John in the kitchen, looking through his mail, and I made a note that he was looking at his mail, and then I wondered, where did your mail come from?
Isn't it possible maybe he was opening the mail looking for a clue from the kidnapper?
I don't know, and I don't speculate. It's a piece of information that I see. It's something that I note.
You thought it was unusual, however.
I can say that it stuck out.
10 a.m., the deadline imposed by the writer of the ransom note for a telephone call.
10 o'clock comes and goes, and there's no acknowledgement within the house from anyone that the deadline imposed by the author of the ransom note has come and gone.
Nobody said it's 10 o'clock and the kidnappers haven't called?
Nobody said that.
Was that something else you took note of?
Absolutely.
By 10:30 in the morning, Arndt was the only police officer in the house with John and Patsy Ramsey, their pastor, and 4 family friends. As they waited for news, the tension was mounting. Arndt called her station house for backup repeatedly, but none had arrived.
How many times did you call the police department asking where your backup was and what was going on?
Well, I remember at least 2 calls. Both times I was told everybody's in a meeting. They got your message, and that was it.
Were you feeling pressure being in charge of a group this large and with anxiety that high?
I felt tremendous pressure.
1:01 p.m. Although the house had already been searched by patrolmen before she arrived, Arndt says that in order to break the building tension, she asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house again, top to bottom, looking for anything out of place. She says she gave them specific instructions not to touch anything. She says John Ramsey headed straight to the basement. She heard Fleet White scream for an ambulance, and then a chilling discovery. For Arndt, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place.
And I see John Ramsey carrying JonBenet up the last 3 steps from the basement. And my mind exploded. And everything that I had noted that morning that stuck out instantly made sense. And JonBenet was clearly dead. Then she's been dead for a while. I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me. And his face was just inches from mine. And we had a nonverbal exchange that I will never forget. And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting, I've got 18 bullets.
Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up. I said everything made sense in that instance. And I knew what happened.
Do you think your fear was well-founded?
You bet I do. There's no doubt in my mind.
To this day?
Never wavered.
You were afraid because you thought the killer was still in the house.
I knew it.
Absolutely?
Absolutely. Oh, there's just so much. There's so much pain. And I called 911. I get my radio number. And I said, the kidnapping has turned into a murder.
This house had suddenly become a homicide crime scene.
Oh, it became hell. JonBenet was brought up at about 5 minutes after 1, and at 10 after 1, nobody'd shown up. And I looked out the window to the street, and I saw an ambulance slowly drive by. And I thought, I am in the Twilight Zone.
Meanwhile, still defends her actions, saying she has become a scapegoat for a flawed investigation. And Linda Arndt remains convinced that she knows who killed JonBenet Ramsey. She will not say the killer's name, but has no doubt that justice will never be done.
Do you think this person will ever be indicted, will ever be charged or convicted?
No.
What you're saying is, whoever killed JonBenet will get away with murder.
Yes.
I really feel like Detective Arndt saw something she shouldn't have when having that exchange with Mr. Ramsey when they were kneeling down next to JonBenet's body. Possibly something the Ramseys forgot to cover up. Just look at how her eyes go so big. If only she had the ability to project on a screen what she saw, which seems to have been very traumatic. This will conclude the first part to this story. As the second part, I will go over the aftermath and how the Ramseys did not get formally interrogated by law enforcement until May 1st. That's right, a whole 4 months to secure a solid story. Before I end part 1, I want to make clear I don't think John and Patsy actually committed the crime, but I do think they tried to cover something up, but I will go more into that in part 2. If you enjoyed today's video, please smash that like button. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Please consider supporting my channel by becoming a member or by donating to one of the links in the description. Today's missing person case is Lisa Pollock. She was last heard from sending an SOS message from a Chevron in Wickiup, Arizona on Christmas Day. She has blue eyes, light brown hair. She was wearing blue jeans and a tan hoodie. Please take a close look. Please take care of yourself and be sure to tell someone you love them. And I love you all. Thank you.